Coming up in today's show, the boys talk Spanish football, looking at the relationship of two football teams who share the same city, Rayo Vallecano and Real Madrid.
My enemies will not prosper. Seems like every time they take a shot they hit the crossbar. And I move like Neymar. Them boys ain't even on my radar.
When you think of Spanish football, one of the first names you think of are Real Madrid. Known as Los Blancos due to their all-white kit, it's fair to say that the side are one of the biggest teams in the country, if not throughout the world. Having won the Spanish top flight of La Liga 32 times, the Spanish Cup, the Copa del Rey, 19 times, and the European Cup, or Champions League, a record 11 times, they're one of the most celebrated and decorated sides to have played the game. Located at the Santiago Bernabeu, which sits in the centre of the Spanish capital, there's no doubting that the Madrid supporters have been spoilt when it comes to watching great players. From Di Stefano to Hugo Sanchez, Puskás to Rayo, Zidane to Beckham, and one Ronaldo to another, they've seen their fair share of the game's top talent play for their club.
Real aren't the only top-tier team competing in Madrid, however, with Rayo Vallecano playing their football just a few miles away from the Bernabeu. Founded in 1924, Rayo play at the 15,000-seater Campo de Futbol de Vallecas Stadium, located in the working-class area of Madrid, and the passionate fan base take pride in their club's humble surroundings. In order to find more, I caught up with football journalist Jan Villen-Spars, who recently ventured across to Spain and enjoyed days out at both teams' grounds. This is what he had to say.
I think Real Madrid have a largely internationalised fan club with you could see going into the game that there's people attending from all over the world, whereas I think there was the signage at the Bernabeu Stadium in any case it's in English, and I think it's even in Chinese, whereas at Rayo Vallecano you probably won't hear anything but classical Spanish. Literally, at Real Madrid you see supporters, whenever Ronaldo got the ball, they were acting as if it was a circus, and Ronaldo was like a monkey having to do tricks. He couldn't do anything normally. If he played a normal pass, they would boo and say, "Oh, do something special." Whereas at Rayo Vallecano, it's more like a Spanish family club, with normal people of Madrid come rather than tourists.
Most people know of Real Madrid's international nature, but Rayo's specialty is in their local community feel. I could waffle on for ages about it, but Copa 90 summed it up brilliantly in this short feature clip.
We all have something very special here, a unique football club, and everybody needs to remember that.
Nos gustaría tener 11 vallecanos de nacimiento, de adopción, peleando en el campo de fútbol.
Rayo es Vallecas, o Vallecas es el Rayo. Ahora mucho más que antes.
Rayo is the pride of a working class neighbourhood.
I think Rayo Vallecano's uniqueness really stands on their neighbourhood. That this is a team that doesn't represent a city as such, it represents a particular neighbourhood with a very strong self-identity.
El Rayo forma parte del barrio y eso no se me ocurren muchos más ejemplos en España.
You've got the likes of Malaga and they represent the city of Malaga. You've got the likes of Celta Vigo and they represent the city of Vigo. Rayo Vallecano represents a neighbourhood in the south of Madrid.
The Rayo name is a big name in football, and an incredibly big name in football for a team that comes from a small district of 300,000 people. People recognise Rayo, they recognise the values they stand for.
Aquí no hay un componente nacionalista muy elevado y sí hay un componente de pertenencia al barrio muy fuerte.
Players are very aware of what Rayo Vallecano is.
Los aficionados a veces tienen la idea de llevarlo a dar un tour por el barrio, por las cosas que hay en el barrio, para que ellos sientan lo que pasa aquí.
La implicación que puede tener un jugador con un equipo o con una comunidad que conoce va a ser obviamente muchísimo mayor que cuando simplemente llega aquí, cedido, 6 meses, juega, se va, le da igual si este equipo baja, si este equipo pierde.
Es esencial, es muy importante para nosotros el estar identificado con el barrio.
La mayoría de gente del barrio es de izquierdas y eso se refleja también en un equipo de fútbol.
You can't say at Rayo that politics and football don't mix because they are almost one and the same.
But there's no doubt that Rayo is a club that, because it kind of reaches out to its neighbourhood but not beyond, it brings people in.
This is a club that was formed in 1924 that only in the last sort of 15-20 years has been able to compete at the top table, and it's put Vallecas on the map.
El estadio está en el corazón de Vallecas y eso es una parte muy importante de vínculo entre lo que es el barrio en el día a día y su gente.
People are very proud of Rayo I think Rayo in the recent times has become very successful too, and I think the neighbourhood and the barrio have kind of tapped into that, and they think we want to share part of this identity. We like what this club stands for. We like what they're doing.
I don't think they're looking to try and convince a young lad who grows up near the Bernabeu to be a Rayo fan. If he turns into a Rayo fan because he likes what they stand for, Rayo would be delighted by that. But I think Rayo are very much focused on where they come from and who they are.
There's also massive differences in both sets of supporters' ideologies. A left-leaning group, Rayo's Ultras, the Bucaneros, are famed for their anti-racism and anti-fascism stances, so much so that they have organised match days dedicated to stamping out racism. Real's Ultra Sur, in tune with the differences between the two sides, are at the other end of the political spectrum. Staunch right-wingers, they have, on one occasion, been investigated by UEFA for racist chanting during a Levante game in 2005. There is also a stark contrast between the areas from which the two sets of fans hail. The 85,000-seater Bernabeu sits in the centre of Madrid, a powerful masterpiece which stands at the heart of the capital. In Vallecano, meanwhile, 300,000 inhabitants are oppressed by a tight, compact 15,000-seater Estadio Teresa Riviero, epitomising their strong working-class values.
In search for professional opinion, we sent a reporter Callum Scott to catch up with Dr. Kenneth Pratt, a former journalist and politics expert. This is what he had to say.
So Ken, thanks very much for joining us. We appreciate it, especially in such short notice. So tell us what you know about the rivalry between Rayo Vallecano and Real Madrid.
Well, obviously, Real Madrid are really seen as a kind of elite team, obviously, in a European and a global perspective, not just from a footballing point of view, but also in terms of their finances and also their ethos. If you compare that or contrast it to Rayo, for example, who are a community team, I don't think their stadium is even fully built. I think it's three-sided. It's a bit like New Douglas Park in that sense, but it's in the middle of a neighbourhood with people's working class neighbourhood with people's washing hanging out and babies screaming, and I mean Rayo themselves are all encompassing in terms of everyone from different social divides, from stand up for lesbian and gay rights, for all the equality issues, all the kind of progressive, kind of working class issues. So there's a cultural chasm, if you like, between Real Madrid and Rayo.
So can you tell us a bit about the history of Real Madrid in particular, because I know you're pretty clued up in that, the links with Franco, etc.
Yeah, well, I mean, the fascist links with as far as Real Madrid are concerned, and Franco was one of those fascist leaders who saw the value of sport and connected football and other sports to the idea of power and strength, and also used it as a propaganda opportunity to communicate with large swathes of the Spanish population, including his old allies like the Catholic Church, for example, big institutions, so sporting institutions, religious institutions, the institutions of old, the kind of traditional capitalist institutions as well, which is kind of also, I think, why Real Madrid is the way it is in terms of buying big, thinking big, friends with the mercantile capitalists globally. So from that point of view, Franco's relationship is one that is enmeshed in the Real Madrid culture, I think.
So we obviously touched on there that Real Madrid are the way they are because of Franco, but did these links exist before that?
The links? Do you mean the
were they known as the fascist club before that, or the club of the elite before Franco adopted them?
That's a good question. I don't actually know, to be honest. As far as my awareness of it is concerned, it's Spanish Civil War, Real Madrid, fascism. I think probably in order to answer that question, you would have to look further back at the roots of Spanish fascism, even pre-Franco, and it could well be the case that the same pattern exists, even pre-Franco, that there was that allegiance to power and strength in that part of Spain.
So we spoke about the kind of Spanish Civil War there, the rivalry between Real and Rayo. Do you see any similarities between that and the rivalry between Real Madrid and Barcelona, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could say Rio in some ways are Barcelona in miniature, in as much as obviously Barcelona with its connections with UNICEF, global charities, the underdogs, that's already been well documented. So you could really see Rio as a microcosm of that. Arguably, you could say that it's a much more valuable microcosm than Barcelona itself, because in some ways Barcelona engages with the wider global kind of capitalist structure, whereas this is real grassroots stuff. I mean, that's the difference. I think what you would also have to look at in terms of Rio as well is the fact that all possibilities are there with a community club like that. I mean, there was one story of them where they went and visited an 84-year-old woman who was quite ill and whose flat overlooked the ground. The players went up, they took her milk, they did her shopping for her. That strong sense of community. But when I say all possibilities, the interesting thing about some aspects of fascism, and particularly Italian fascism, is the idea that that can come from the left wing, from community-based organisations as well, and it's not. Some branches of it aren't necessarily the kind of racist, neo-Nazi type fascism that we would associate with, like Adolf Hitler, for example. Like Mussolini played a big part in the Spanish Civil War. During the invasion of Mallorca, for example, Mussolini's fascists were there. That was all about community. It was all about working class and underclass communities, families coming together in order to generate a kind of national pride. So, from that point of view, it would be easy to create a simplistic comparison between Real Madrid and Rio as being politically right and politically left, but in fact in the anarchic structure of the kind of underclass and working class areas around the ground, around Rio's ground, all possibilities are there, including the possibility of the development of a type of fascism that isn't racist.
In regards to, you've already sort of touched on it, with Real Madrid's kind of capitalist links, do you think that, constantly breaking transfer records and that, do you think that coincides with the politics of the club?
I think the politics of the club is very much connected up to the idea of branching out, taking risks. It's almost like kind of venture capitalism, win at all costs. So from that point of view, their attitude and their whole kind of culture is reflected in a form of kind of global capitalism, if you like, or venture capitalism.
And obviously in regards to Rayo, do you think that they'll, obviously it's good to speak about their community aspects and that, but do you think that they'll maybe have to get more capitalist, if anything, if they want to succeed more in La Liga?
Well, I mean, I think that's a really good question, because to what extent do you stretch your ethos or ethics? You've heard the term champagne socialists in this country or in other parts of Europe. To what point do you stretch your identity to where you? Because one argument is that you have to engage with the system, the power structures that are in place. So I think, to answer your question, realistically there would have to be a level of engagement, but to what extent would a team like Rio be willing to extend that to the extent that they could lose their own ethos?
So obviously, Ken, to finally round off, can you see, we've seen the rise of the right wing, particularly in Europe at the moment with Brexit, stuff like the rise of the National Front in France. Can you see any links between that and Spanish football, and in particular Real Madrid?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are links in terms of the kind of arguably the nastier elements of that, the racist elements. Also, just the kind of almost the kind of alienation of individuals and the way subcultures are alienated in that kind of structure. I mean, I think you'll know more about this than me, Calum, but I think there are examples at Real Madrid of racist case studies that can clearly be associated more with the type of extreme right-wing culture that you're talking about in the wider context, wider European context.
Thanks very much, Ken, for your time. Thank you.
Right.
So now we're joined back in the studio with the boys, Callum Scott and Callum Fisher, just to talk about what we found out. Callum, we sent you to talk to Dr. Kenneth Pratt on the politics around the two clubs. How did that go and what did you find out?
Yeah, well, Calum, it went really well. Obviously, Ken's a guy who knows a lot about Spanish politics. That was the thinking behind asking him first and foremost. We're a bit sceptical at first because he wasn't too sure of Rayo with the relationship with that. However, the information came out with was incredible. Obviously, it was more related to the kind of fascist element of Real Madrid originally, but found out a lot of stuff that we'll happily tell you all about when we're asked.
Yeah, that's perfect. And Callum Fisher, you touched on looking at the sets of fans and how they differentiate. What did you find out?
Well, I think firstly when you think of Spanish football and particularly Real Madrid and rivalries, you think of Real Madrid and Barcelona and the right wing and left wing between the two. I suppose it's quite similar to an extent with Rayo and Real Madrid as well. Obviously we've seen in peace that Rayo are very left wing, the supporters anyway, whereas Real Madrid are more to the right wing and more as you would expect Real Madrid supporters to be like. The main thing for me as well, in terms of football we associate Real Madrid with being a sort of glamour club and things like that. And when it comes to Rayo and Real Madrid, that's the kind of case between the supporters as well. The Real Madrid supporters are more from an affluent kind of area, whereas the Rayo supporters tend to come from a more working class area. And I think that was the most interesting thing for me anyway.
Yeah. So do you think, comparing almost Rayo to Barcelona, obviously there is differences with them as well. So do you think that there is a big divide in the city of Madrid with the kind of traditionalist fans and then the kind of tourist fans?
Well, there could be, of course, but obviously there's another club in Madrid as well. Obviously, there's Atletico, which doesn't have the same divide as Real and Rayo. But really, to just follow on what Calum was saying, it really does come down to, left wing, right wing. Real Madrid and this global superpower, really. You can see that. Obviously, Ken touched upon in the transfer policy as well. Asked the question about that. Yeah, the Galacticos. It's always been Real Madrid will spend any cost to win, really, what capitalism's really about. Whereas Rayo, community club, I think you and I were talking about it as well. That the players take the new players tours round the area, around the ground and that. So obviously, there are more community factor to that. But as you say, I think there is a split amongst Madrid, but as Calum touched upon, really the kind of working class areas to obviously more affluent areas.
So boys, this is a question open to both of you. You touched on it briefly when you were talking to Ken. Do you think Rayo Vallecano would ever look at kind of turning away from their community roots to try and improve performance on the field, or do you think it really doesn't matter that much, it's more about what happens away from the pitch that makes them who they are?
I think, I wouldn't obviously say on the field doesn't matter, but I think in terms for Rayo Vallecano, their supporters and their club are very set in their community ways, really, just kind of following on from what Calum was saying there, the strip that they launched a couple of years back, it was like a rainbow kind of sash across the strip that had all different kind of causes on it and things like that. So I think that's very much what Rayo Vallecano are about. There was stuff for the LGBT community and things like that.
We've also seen sorry to cut across, but also we've also seen that the supporters are really influenced with the way clubs run, because the Ukrainian boy they had on loan, who they ended up terminating the loan because he was kind of right-wing views as well, where the fans was calling him a Nazi, etc. So that obviously shows the power of the supporters and obviously coincides with the running of the club.
I think it would be very difficult as well for a club like Rayo Vallecano to try and follow suit a club like Real Madrid, who are a global superpower, and as I think we've seen from this piece, I don't think that's necessarily something that they want to do either.
That's better, boys. Thanks very much for joining.
Thank you.
Real deal, you can see it in my posture. I feel like Leo with an Oscar. The price just changed, no sound with a posture. And I'm not an imposter. My style don't borrow or foster. My enemies will not prosper. Seems like every time they take a shot they hit the crossbar. And I move like Neymar. Them boys ain't even on my radar. I do my own stunts, no savior.